Elders, cultivators, and travelers passing by. If this tale intrigues you, please strike that like button and subscribe. I clasp my hands in gratitude to you all. Now let the saga begin. Behold our protagonist Ed Roth Taylor. At this very moment, he feels as though he has plummeted into the deepest abyss of society. And the reason for his absolute despair, he has transmigrated, or rather, he has awakened inside a game world. The setting is none other than the legendary Sylvania Magic Academy. This isn't just any world. It is the game he cherished above all else. The masterpiece known as Sylvania's Failed Swordsman. Typically, in such isekai tales, when entering the game, one usually awakens as the scion of a wealthy evil tycoon clan like the Genius family. Someone born with a golden spoon to cause chaos. Or perhaps an SSS-RANK hunter character who shatters every law of nature with godlike power. But our main character, Fate, had a cruel twist in store for him. Miraculously, he became a third-rate villain. A piece of trash kicked out of the dormitory the moment the prologue ended. Truly, the bottom of the barrel. He possessed the worst character at the absolute worst possible time. A darkness deeper than night surrounded him. Ed Roth Taylor is a name synonymous with failure. A villain who appears in the opening act solely to be crushed. He abused his noble lineage to torment the protagonist's childhood friends. A classic stepping stone for the hero. But his punishment did not end with a mere beating. His heart was consumed by a venomous hatred, and that malice led him to a fatal mistake. He dared to tamper with the sacred entrance exam results of the Academy's hero. A despicable act of sabotage born from jealousy. However, he was caught red-handed by the third princess of the Clorence Empire. She possessed the insight of a ruler. Using her clairvoyance to pierce through his deception, she saw through the conspiracy instantly. Ed Roth Taylor, now exposed and cornered, could only grit his teeth in humiliation before the royal guard. His crimes were laid bare before the princess and her esteemed mentors. He was stripped of his dignity and cast out of the dormitory. The entire academy looked upon him with utter disdain. Ed Roth Taylor was swiftly erased from his family registry, disowned by his own blood. But the most agonizing part of this tragedy is simply this. All these sins were committed by the original Ed Roth Taylor. It had absolutely nothing to do with the innocent soul now trapped in his body. You poor, unfortunate soul. Why must transmigration always happen at the point of no return? Now he can only gaze up at the indifferent sky and sigh. Is this fate's idea of a joke? Why must a man who lived a frugal, diligent life suffer such a calamity? But perhaps the gods had not completely abandoned him yet. A sliver of hope appeared. As if answering his silent plea, a strange phenomenon occurred. When he looked into his reflection in the stream, it appeared. The system interface, the lifeline of every transmigrator, Ed Roth Taylor. Physical strength 3, willpower 4, intelligence 7, luck 6, gender male, age 17, race human, achievements none. Do not avert your eyes from this tragic status board. Now you understand the depth of his misfortune. These numbers aren't just low, they are catastrophic. Ed Roth Taylor is arguably the weakest existence here. Even a nameless NPC farmer has better base stats than this noble scion. It is truly pitiful. Despite being born into a prestigious magic family, his magical power is negligible. His will is fragile, and his physical body is pathetic. A noble in name only. No wonder he was designed as a third-rate villain. He was merely a disposable stepping stone for the tutorial phase. Even in the player's memory, he was a blur. I can barely recall his face from my playthroughs. I have no memory of what happens to this character after the prologue, because he simply ceases to matter. Wait. A memory surfaces. In the final credits of the game, there was a fleeting image. Ed Roth Taylor was there. He was begging on the streets, looking like a destitute vagrant. A pampered scoundrel thrown into the harsh world with zero survival skills. It was no surprise he ended up that way. Actually, he was lucky just to be alive in that scene. But that wretched future. Begging for scraps, a chill ran down his spine. He stood frozen like a statue. No. I refuse to accept that ending. I will not rot in the gutter. Sylvania Magic Academy is not just a school. It is a massive metropolis, governing the entire island of Aachen. A majestic domain that rivals any kingdom. Currently, he is in the northwest sector, a dense, untouched forest. Ed Roth Taylor fled here to escape the scornful gazes of the students. He sought refuge in the shadows, disowned by his clan. Penniless. Homeless. This is truly the difficulty level of hell mode. However, there is one small mercy: he has not yet been expelled from the academy. This technicality is his only lifeline. Sylvania is the continent's premier institution. The diploma alone is worth its weight in gold. As long as you graduate, your future success is guaranteed. You join the elite. And since this world follows the logic of the game, as a veteran who cleared this game 5 times, I possess the ultimate weapon. Knowledge. I know every secret, every hidden item, and every event. I just need to graduate quietly, without drawing attention. If I succeed, I can live a life of luxury, far surpassing my old world. The goal is set. I will survive. And I will graduate. But a massive obstacle stands in my way. The tuition fees are astronomically high. This semester is paid for, but the next I need a scholarship. There is no other way. But with these garbage stats, it seems impossible. Unless a miracle happens, I am finished. No, I can worry about tuition later. Right now, there is a more pressing enemy. Survival itself. I need shelter. I need food. He looked down at his 2 suitcases. These are his only worldly possessions. How does one avoid begging on the streets next week? He has clothes, but no food and no roof over his head. And his reputation. It is so toxic that no one in the city would hire him. He cannot return to the dorms. The gates are barred to him. He is truly alone. He realized his reality. He is stuck in this forest, but at least there is fresh water nearby. There are 10 days remaining until the semester begins. 10 days to build a foundation. 10 days to learn how to live in the wild. His survival story in the forest begins now. He unleashed the Windblade spell, slicing through the timber, but after felling 15 trees, his mana hit rock bottom. Every ounce of magic consumed deepened the void in his stomach. Glancing at the raw timber, a distant memory surfaced. His grandfather once spoke of the Great Drought. He claimed he survived by devouring tree bark from the mountain's shadow. Desperate times called for desperate measures. He tossed the bark into a cup and boiled it with his remaining magical energy. Skewering the soggy wood like a fine delicacy, he tried to convince himself. If he squinted, it almost looked like tender chicken breast. But reality struck hard the moment he swallowed. By the 3rd day, he was a wreck. Gaunt and hollow-eyed, he looked more like a walking corpse than a student. 2 days of retching taught him a harsh lesson. Bark was poison. He needed a shelter starting with a sturdy frame, but balancing 4 heavy pillars with only 2 hands? It was a logistical nightmare. His back screamed in protest as he strained against the weight. It was a pathetic sight to behold. Crash. The structure collapsed, nearly crushing his ribs. Brute force wasn't the answer. He needed leverage. Using rope to secure the beams, the frame finally held firm. By the following dawn, his masterpiece was ready. Ed Roth Taylor gazed at his creation. To his exhausted eyes, this shack looked like a palace. Suddenly, ding, a blue system window flashed into existence. Construction complete. Craftsmanship proficiency increased. Item acquired, basic wooden tent. A primitive shelter offering momentary respite from the elements. Warning, without regular maintenance, this shabby hut will collapse. Difficulty rating, half a star. Life skill unlocked, novice craftsman. Dexterity level 4. Design level 1. Collection level 1. Ed stared blankly at the screen. A crafting system. He had lived as a pampered noble until now. Who knew his hands were better suited for labor than magic? Right now, that dexterity was his lifeline. Next objective, craft a wooden spear. He needed food. 2 days of labor on an empty stomach was suicide. His body was at its limit, but the primal will to survive pushed him forward. Meat. I need meat. The heavens answered. 2 fresh fish finally lay before him. He wasted no time using magic to sear them on a hot stone slab. The savory aroma was intoxicating. 1 week. Just 1 week until the academy semester began. If he could survive until then, he might just make it through this nightmare. But just as he reached for his prize, a cold voice sliced through the air. Ed Roth Taylor, you still haven't left. Princess Sylvania, the very woman who had exiled him from the dorms. Of all the people to run into, his luck was truly cursed. Her eyes narrowed in disgust the moment she recognized him. What are you doing here? She demanded. Technically, he was still a student, just homeless. He had only been evicted from the building, not the school. But logic didn't matter to her. I can't stand the sight of a shameless wretch like you, she spat. I will inform the principal immediately. You will be expelled for disrespecting the academy's nobility and for maliciously harming a fellow student. As her accusations rained down, Ed watched in horror as his precious fish began to burn. 3 days of starvation wasted. No focus. The fish didn't matter. His entire future hung in the balance. This was Princess Sylvania. She held the power to destroy him with a single word. He needed a new strategy, and fast. The sun was setting. The shadows were lengthening. Even a princess was vulnerable alone in the woods. A dark, menacing aura wrapped around him. He twisted his face into a villainous sneer. If he couldn't reason with her, he would scare her into silence. The princess tensed, sensing the shift. Magic flared around her. If you think you can intimidate me just because my guards are absent, you are sorely mistaken. Suddenly, Ed dropped to one knee, head bowed low. Threaten you. I was merely overwhelmed with gratitude, Your Highness. He looked up with a dazzling, friendly smile. And damn, he was handsome. Her clairvoyant skill activated instantly. The verdict, no lies detected. She froze, completely bewildered. Was this the same scheming villain? The reading didn't make sense. After all, the Roth Taylor name was synonymous with corruption, exploitation, and dark experiments. The Roth Taylor lineage was a trash family destined for absolute ruin. While the rest of them faced execution or the dungeon, I had merely been cast out. I might have to endure the gnawing pain of hunger and the biting cold, but freezing in the wild was a mercy compared to death. In the long run, this exile was a blessing. But first, I had to survive. I needed to persuade the princess herself, and I could not utter a single lie. If I failed, my life at the academy would end today. It was 1 week before the semester began. Why was Her Highness lurking here? I analyzed the situation instantly. No royal guards, no formal dress. The gears in my mind spun. Her presence here, so unguarded, simply meant she was attempting the legendary trial. Professor Glass's infamous placement exam, the search for monoparticles within the forest. It was a test known for its incomparable difficulty. A royal aiming for perfection would settle for nothing less than Class A. Spare me the flattery, she scoffed. You haven't changed one bit. As expected, I should demand your immediate expulsion. But my next words froze her in place. Without my help, Class A is just a pipe dream. Had I lied even a little, she would have destroyed me. But I spoke with the absolute weight of certainty. Intrigued, she followed my lead to a small, secluded island in the southeast. There, hidden within a hollow tree, lay the prize, the golden magic bead. It was a desperate bribe prepared by the previous owner of this body. Looking at the artifact, I realized just how pathetic and incompetent the old Ed must have been. However, the situation had shifted. My actions today had planted a seed of doubt in the princess's mind. Back in the lecture hall, Professor Glass called time. The students proudly displayed their findings, presenting what they believed were magic beads, their eyes shining with the desperate hope of being placed in the elite class. But reality was cruel. They were all assigned to Class D. They failed to grasp the true essence of the trial. It wasn't about finding just times any times bead. Only those who could locate the spheres, overflowing with pure mana, would enter Class A. As he said, there were only 3 golden beads in existence. Only 3. People found them. Zig-Lel, and the one hidden in the Merida Guardian Tree. That bead contained immense power. The student who possessed it would rule as the top of the class. Meanwhile, I was fighting my own battle. My fish was burnt to a crisp, and my spear arm was trembling from exhaustion. I couldn't catch anything, so I was forced to craft a rudimentary 1-star fishing rod. As I tied the bait, I pondered the third princess of the presented Elias Empire. Since childhood, she possessed a terrifying gift. She could see through all deception. That sharp gaze was the result of an innate skill. No one could escape her clairvoyance. I had no choice but to lead her to the truth. But this victory would spawn a catastrophic problem. The reason she is called the Princess of Love is that after failing this test, she falls to a lower class and the romance begins. However, if such an influential figure finds the magic bead and enters Class A now, the original story will shatter. Even if I avoid expulsion, my knowledge of the future becomes worthless, and I will be finished. A heavy sigh escaped me. Even if the monster prodigy Lucy Morrow remains top of the class, the variables are too dangerous. Her clairvoyance showed her that I wasn't lying about the bead. However, she didn't see it as a gift. She saw it as an unearned shortcut. Her noble pride wouldn't allow her to accept a result she didn't achieve herself. She knew that Magic Bead guaranteed the best result, but Fenia rejected it because she didn't solve the puzzle on her own. The title Princess of Love isn't a stat buff. It is a badge of destiny she earns by following the main scenario. I had cast a bait to the princess, lie, or truth, it didn't matter. I forced her to make a choice based on her nature. The lie was that the princess was destined to fail the test. Everything was back on track. At that moment, my fishing line tugged. A catch. I secured my survival without breaking the timeline. Finally, the morning of the entrance ceremony arrived. I sprinted like a madman to make the welcome party on time. Whispers followed me about the fallen noble, but I ignored them. This was the winner's reward. I attacked the buffet, devouring dozens of plates of meat, compensating for every starving night in that forest hell. The following day marked the true beginning of Sylvania Academy. But before classes could even start, I was summoned to the principal's office. He collapsed to the ground, gulping down water as if it were the elixir of life. He had barely survived expulsion. But the question remained, who in the hell had pleaded his case to the principal? Judging by the way that old fox of a principal was grinning, someone must have painted a saintly picture of him. Regardless, luck was on his side today. He had narrowly escaped being kicked out of the academy. Now he had to be cautious. He could not afford to deviate too far from the original storyline. One wrong move and the butterfly effect could erase his existence entirely. For now, he had unlocked the survival mastery skill. To survive as a mage with absolutely zero magical talent, there was no better weapon than the bow. It was the perfect equalizer. If he could combine his survival instincts with higher craftsmanship to create quality bows eventually, he could enchant his arrows with elemental magic. That was the endgame. Even though right now his affinity for spirits and spells was tragic, suddenly his train of thought shattered. A figure sat beneath the ancient tree bathed in dappled sunlight. It was Janica Faelover, second-year top of Class 1. The Academy's darling and a Genius Spirit Elementalist. And unfortunately she had just noticed him. Marilda was right. "You really are an interesting guy, aren't you?" she smiled. "I'm Janica Faelover. We're in the same year, so just call me Janica." Before he could blink, she used wind magic to flash right in front of his face. He recoiled in shock. "Wondering how I know you, or how I found you," she giggled, gesturing around them. "This forest is the domain of Marilda, a high-ranking wind spirit. I come here to listen to her whispers. The mistress of the forest told me all about you. Marilda is a bit of a gossip, you see, but nothing happens in these woods without her knowing. So naturally, an uninvited guest stands out like a beacon in the night." Her words carried a weight that made his blood run cold. Uninvited guest. He looked down at the dead rabbit in his hand. He had slaughtered squirrels and chopped down trees to build his shelter. He had desecrated her sanctuary. Seeing the panic rise in his eyes, Janica leaned in, her voice softening. "Hey, don't look so terrified. Marilda doesn't mind. The creatures here follow the law of the jungle. Eat or be eaten. That is the natural order. Besides, those resources belong to the earth, not us." Janica's sudden proximity made Ed's cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Even a giant, terrifying wolf can have a gentle heart, you know." Her cryptic words made him flinch. She was talking about the spirit guarding her. "Oh, I have something adorable to show you." Without waiting for an answer, she extended her hand. Resting on her palm was a tiny spirit she had contracted just yesterday. "Do you want to touch it? Go on. Give it a try." She watched him expectantly, waiting for him to sense the mana. It was a rare star spirit. If he played along, he could befriend the heroine right here. But his survival instinct screamed danger. He put on his best poker face. "I don't see anything. Spirits, I have no talent for that stuff. I don't know what you're looking at." He feigned total ignorance to keep his distance. You really can't see the spirit." She looked crestfallen. "Whatever. I just came to find food. I'm leaving." He turned his back on her instantly. His goal was simple: do not get involved with Janica Faelover. He needed to let the original story play out to exploit his future knowledge. Janica was the protagonist of this world. A villain like him had no business standing by her side. As he walked away, he refused to look back. But Janica's gaze lingered. Her eyes shifted, losing their playfulness. She had seen the flicker of recognition in his eyes earlier. She turned to the empty air beside her. "You were right, Marilda. He is hiding something. Maybe he really couldn't see it. No, that's impossible." Beside her, the air shimmered, revealing a massive, majestic wolf. The high spirit Marilda had been there the whole time. Janica collapsed into the spirit's soft fur, pouting like a child. "I tried so hard to be nice. Why is he so cold? Does he hate me? Ugh, this is so frustrating. We were supposed to be friends, but destiny had only just begun to weave their threads together." Let's take a look at Ed's daily hell. His camp was exiled to the far edges of the academy grounds. Just looking at the map was exhausting. Why was his base so far? It was practically in the wilderness. That meant every single morning he had to sprint like a madman just to reach class before the bell. However, this brutal commute was actually grinding his stamina stats. It was ridiculous, but effective. And since he needed that scholarship, his academic grind was even harder. He used charred sticks for pencils and flat stones for paper to take notes. He raided the library for knowledge and washed his sweaty uniform in the river every evening. He had become a master of efficiency. You'd think laundry was a quick chore. Wake up to reality. Living in the wild was a full-time job. He still had to gather firewood, filter water, and prep dried meat just to survive the next day. After all that labor, he barely managed 4 hours of sleep a night. But the physical exhaustion wasn't his biggest problem. His patience finally snapped. He spun around, glaring at a suspicious bush. "How long are you going to stalk me?" A squeak of surprise came from the foliage. Janica popped out, looking guilty. You knew I was there. You're terrible at hiding. Do you know who I am? I am Ed Roth Taylor, the trash of the academy. Why are you obsessed with me?" Your face drips with malice. A perfect mask for a villain. But those are just whispers from the crowd. Regarding your reputation, correct. I don't truly know your soul. Yet she looked so radiant. Her expression was glowing with the holiness of a saint. It made me reconsider everything. Ranik is a paradox. At First glance, she appears naive, perhaps even foolish. But beneath that facade lies a girl with a will of steel. However, I possess the curse of foresight. I know exactly what tragedy awaits her. I cannot simply offer a cheerful smile or empty comfort, because Janica's path leads only to death. She is the only soul in this wretched world who smiles at me. I despise taking things this far, but self-loathing rises within me. You are filth, I mutter to myself, then I speak the cruel words aloud. Fate brought us together, like this. Perhaps it is destiny. Can you help me? She asked. Janica's eyes shone with eager innocence, blind to the fact that I am deceiving my own bloodline. I have been left penniless, cut off from the family fortune. Can I borrow some coin? The words hung in the air. Janica froze, turning to stone instantly. I will pay you back, I lied. I won't just take it. Friends help each other in dark times, right? It was a test. I only need it for a short while. How much do you have? In truth, this cruel request had a purpose. Every year, Janica earns the top scholarship for first place in her class. But raw talent is not enough in this harsh society. Despite her brilliance, her family is destitute. Without that scholarship money, she would be forced to drop out. Her weakness is gold, and I just struck that nerve. I watched her hesitation. Then I vanished into the shadows. 3 days later, I was surviving in the wild hunting rabbits. Guilt gnawed at me. Treating Janica that way felt vile, but I had to sever ties. Getting involved with the main cast of the original plot is dangerous. I must tread carefully. One wrong move could shatter the timeline. With a heavy heart, I returned to my wooden shelter. But the moment I peered inside, shock paralyzed me. My basket fell from my hands. What in the world is that? Forget minor characters. This presence is far more critical than Janica. Not just classmates. Even arrogant professors bow their heads when speaking of this monster, a once-in-a-century genius, the strongest entity in the failed swordsman of Sylvania, Lucy Morrow. Hearing the noise, she yawned, stirring from her slumber. Her sleepy eyes met mine. Why the hell is he sleeping here, I thought. What are you doing in this valley, Lucy was, finally speaking. You're too loud. I can't sleep. I was bewildered. You're not that wolf, she mumbled, pointing at the day, massive spirit house behind her. The windfox spirit had been whispering to me all along. A divine quest. Save Janica at all costs when the day of reckoning comes. 2 days later, a major event descended upon the academy. The joint combat practice. A stage for glory and humiliation. It is a duel. A simulated war designed to minimize true death, yet combat students strike with lethal intent using mock weapons. The benevolent Princess Phenia, the merchant Queen Lortel, the elementalist Janica, the slothful Lucy. The stage was set with these titans. The tension would build until tomorrow. But the spotlight belonged to one man. The main character. The failure Taylor. His match was next. My blood pumped with excitement even though I knew the script. The result was etched in my memory. In the general combat practice arc, the male students usually dominate, especially our protagonist. Except for one chaotic variable. I couldn't believe my eyes. She came back to me asking about the money. No, she greeted me with a radiant smile. If Lucy is a stray cat, Janica is a loyal golden puppy. Right now, she was shoving a match list in my face. I don't need this, I thought. Feigning disinterest. Aren't you curious? Look who you are fighting. Her words struck me like lightning. Wait. I have to enter the ring. Panic set in. In the original story, the villain Roth Taylor was already expelled. Who is my opponent? My eyes scanned the tournament bracket. Realization hit me like a truck. No way. Taylor was also entering the ring. My focus shifted entirely to him, watching through the magical screen. I have lived his life. I have wrestled with Taylor's destiny countless times. From agonizing defeats to glorious victories, I have walked this hellish path. Among the myriad of futures Taylor can choose, none are easy. Even though I decided to carve my own path, my soul still cheers for the hero. But look there. Taylor's opponent stood on the field, the monster of the first years, Lucy Morrow. According to the prophecy, Taylor, the protagonist of This World, was born with the destiny of the sword god. He has never held a blade yet with a single swing. He severed Lucy's lightning magic, a scene of absolute legend. She thought she could crush him, but it was to no avail. Taylor would exploit her arrogance and close the distance in a heartbeat. But unexpectedly, Lucy unleashed a mid-tier lightning spell to blast Taylor into the sky. He was completely overwhelmed by Lucy's instinctual magic. However, because she used forbidden magic in a mock duel, Lucy was disqualified. Taylor claimed the title of victor by technicality. That was the scene recorded in legend. She remembered it well. Watching that scene, I felt a lump form in my throat. The moment the referee's shout pierced the air, the battle began. He didn't hesitate, charging in with nothing but his bare fists, a desperate gambler, betting everything. But Lucy, she looked bored. With a casual flick of her hand, she unleashed a shockwave that blasted Taylor into the wall. It was over in a heartbeat. The crowd didn't even have time to cheer. Lucy stood there, stifling a yawn. That impact wasn't enough to even make her flinch. The whispers in the stands grew louder and crueler. Of course he couldn't win against a prodigy. Did he really rush a mage with his bare hands? But they didn't know Taylor's story. His life has been a relentless uphill climb. Born a commoner, labeled a failure, a student with 0 achievements. Since stepping foot in this academy, he had been invisible to them. But while the world wrote him off as a loser, he refused to stay down. Even in the depths of despair, Taylor held on to a flicker of hope. I watched from the shadows, silently cheering for the main character to rise. He forced a smile and charged again. I calculated his move. He was baiting Lucy to use her signature thunder magic. But then reality shattered my expectations. My heart stopped. Just as his strike was about to connect, a violent gust of wind erupted, blocking his path. He tried to pierce through the gale, but a massive spirit avatar manifested, unleashing a devastating blast of pressure. Launching Taylor straight into the ceiling, panic set in. This wasn't right. The script had changed. It wasn't thunder. It was wind magic. The referee declared Lucy the winner, but I stood frozen, my mind racing. Taylor lay defeated, staring at the ceiling. I watched his retreating back and realized this is a catastrophe. I can't leave. Him alone now? That wind shield. It was the absolute defense of the Wind Spirit Temple, an auto-defense mechanism granted only to those who form a pact with the High Spirit Merida. Lucy. She just walked away, probably thinking about dried meat. But this power. In the original novel, Merida and Lucy were supposed to be separate entities. Somehow, Lucy had already contracted the spirit, gaining legendary power way too early. As Taylor limped away, the referee announced the next match. Srot versus the Imperial Princess. I saw Taylor passing by me. I wanted to speak, but he walked past in silence. At that moment, I could hear his internal scream. He thought he should have won, that his effort would be enough. But he lost, crushed by talent. Taylor, listen to me. Your blood and sweat won't be in vain. Don't let your head drop. There is no shame in this defeat. Walk tall. You fought a monster far beyond your level. Don't let this break your spirit. The reason I'm saying this is because the trials waiting for us in this academy are far more brutal. If the protagonist falls now, who will save this world? And standing before me, the first person to see through everything. Princess Faya. Her ability is a curse disguised as a gift. The divine clairvoyance, the eye that exposes every lie. Living in a palace built on deceit, she grew up seeing the ugly truth behind every smile. From the darkness of that political abyss, she sharpened her senses into a weapon. Her intuition is her shield. That is the source of Princess Faya's arrogance. She stares into the corrupt soul of the royal family daily. Even seeing the rot, she loves her country trapped in a destiny she didn't choose. Now she fixed those judging eyes on me. The duel between Srot and Princess Fia was about to begin. She stood tall, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Please go easy on me. But the crowd's murmurs were venomous. They whispered about me, Srot, scum, trash. Fia listened, believing their words confirmed by her intuition. Srot the bully. The guy who uses his status to crush juniors. The cheater who tried to rig his exams. To her, I was a villain painted in the blackest colors. But is that really the whole truth? Beneath the rumors, my desperation was real. The referee signaled the start, but neither of us moved. The tension was suffocating. The princess broke the silence first. Srot, you're confusing me. I will end this quickly. Mana gathered in her palm, condensing into a volatile sphere of water magic. She wasn't holding back. Wind and fire were next in her arsenal. How do I handle a monster like her? Simple. I discard my pride. I don't need a dramatic showdown. I don't need to be the hero of the finals. Just as she unleashed her spell, I made my move. Or rather, I didn't. The magic slammed into me. A massive question mark seemed to float over her head. It wasn't the clash she expected. There was no resistance. I lay flat on the floor, staring at the sky. I surrender. My words made Fia furious. What did you just... Even as the crowd's mockery echoed through the stadium, you remained unmoved. You didn't even flinch when the ball screamed past you. It was a hollow victory for the Academy's stars. Watching him from below, I realized the terrifying gap between our resolve and his. My thoughts kept drifting back to him. Throughout the chaos, he never once met my gaze. He was the only anomaly, completely detached from the duel. Princess Fenia narrowed her eyes, deducing his true intent. He was walking a tightrope to preserve. the flow of destiny itself. To him, the grand narrative mattered more than any single life, even that of the princess, the protagonist of this world. While he calmly scanned the area for Taylor's whereabouts, a commanding voice pierced the air behind him. It was Fenia. Her face glistened with perspiration from chasing him down. Fury ignited within her the moment their eyes met. He had shown zero intention of winning. She was fighting tooth and nail just to survive, while this cunning merchant only plotted to seize control of the academy. Between his schemes and Professor Glast's icy tyranny, her situation had become suffocating. "Maintain your dignity," the servant snagged. "My mind is nearing its limit. Who are you to throw my thoughts into such chaos?" Her outburst didn't faze him in the slightest. Had the pressure truly pushed her to the brink, he gently placed his hands on her trembling shoulders. "Princess, breathe. You need not force yourself so hard. Inhale, exhale, just let it go." As she followed his rhythm, the anger faded, replaced by a flush of embarrassment. What came over her? Forget this ever happened. She turned to flee, but paused. "I have a terrible habit," she confessed, voice low. Instead of asking simply, "I constantly try to decipher hidden motives. A curse of palace life, I suppose. So I will ask plainly, did you cut ties with your family because you know their darkness? You had no reason to provoke Taylor, unless you needed an excuse for expulsion, a sharp deduction. It struck dangerously close to the truth. The Roth Taylor house was indeed rotten to the core, yet outwardly he had to play the part of the arrogant fool. "I haven't the faintest idea what you mean." His denial rekindled her rage. She knew her logic was sound. It had to be true. "Then explain this. Why shout those words at Taylor? You encouraged the very boy you tormented. Do you actually care for him?" "I was merely mocking him," he scoffed, eyes cold. "Everyone despises me. If I showed support, it would only confuse them." The excuse was flimsy. Her temper flared hotter than before. "You are lying to my face. Look me in the eye. I speak only the truth," he lied smoothly, though one could almost see his nose growing. The princess, however, possessed the royal insight and sensed the deception instantly. Yet, without proof, she could only seethe in silent fury. "Fine. Without evidence, I cannot press you. Leave. You were heading for that door anyway, were you not? You have schemes to attend to." She pointed sharply. "Thank you, Your Highness." He slipped through the exit, mind racing. This vulnerable side of her was new. If the narrative shifted too much, her entanglement in future events could prove fatal for him. He realized with a start this was his doing. He was the chaos factor altering the story. Guilt flickered across his face. He turned back. "How can a nobody's struggles compare to a princess? Perhaps I overstepped. But you look drained. Politics are heavy, but even royalty must rest. Remember where you are. This is not the treacherous palace. This is Sylvania Academy." Her eyes widened, in shock. She spent her life deciphering lies. Yet this was the first time someone had seen through times her asterisk. He didn't linger. He sprinted to find Taylor. If the boy gave up now, his plans for a peaceful life would crumble. Finally, he spotted him. Taylor was sitting, alone on a bench. He hesitated, searching for words. Suddenly, "Stay back." A sharp cry echoed as a girl threw herself between them. "Get away from him. Haven't you done enough?" It was the heroine. She stood like a shield. "Taylor is suffering because of you. Leave him be." Beside her, Taylor finally raised his head. "You're still here." Witnessing this scene, relief washed over him. The fire hadn't died. He possessed the soul of a warrior, one who would never yield no matter the odds. His eyes burned with renewed determination. In that moment, the pieces fell into place. While I was distracting the princess. With his survival instinct screaming, Ed sprinted toward the exit, refusing to glance back at the main characters. Ayla rushed to comfort Taylor, who had fallen, but the protagonist's spirit was unbreakable. He would rise again and again. Taylor shouted after him, praising his skills, but Ed simply waved a hand and vanished, leaving the confused duo in his wake. He had successfully played the cool, mysterious extra, but suddenly, a massive pillar of flame erupted in the distance. The scenario had begun. Ed knew that right now, everyone in the Nile building was witnessing a spectacle of power. The Queen Lortel was watching. The Spirit Master Janica Faelover was unleashing her might in a sparring match. Even Taylor and Ayla would be captivated. Open your eyes, Taylor. The final boss of the first act is revealing her strength. The duel concluded with Janica's overwhelming victory, and the crowd of students swarmed their idol instantly. But amidst the cheers, Janica froze, her eyes locked on her defeated opponent being carried away on a stretcher. Guilt washed over her. In this timeline, unlike the original game, Lucy had crushed Taylor, changing the flow of destiny. The main character was finally stepping into real combat. Janica became the second year's honor guard surrounded by admirers. Her popularity was exploding, but for a survivalist extra like Ed, this chaos was a signal to stay far away. He wouldn't see her at the camp anymore. For 2 weeks, he avoided the main plot to keep his sanity intact. With the protagonist taking over the spotlight, Ed could finally focus on his true goal, grinding stats and surviving the wild. He crafted a fishing net to solve his food crisis, and his status window finally showed the fruits of his labor. Vitality rose to 6, intelligence to 5, dexterity to 9. Ancient power surged through his strengthening muscles, but peace was short-lived. Janica stumbled upon his secret training spot and saw him shirtless, her face turned crimson red. Ed sighed, covering up. He had told her to leave, yet she kept returning to his sanctuary like a stray cat. To her, this wasn't just a camp. It was a secret base, an adventure away from her suffocating noble life. She hesitated, needing to unburden her heart. She needed advice that only an outsider like Ed could give. The guilt of victory still haunted her. During the battle, she had crushed her opponent too ruthlessly. She tried to bury the memory, but the image of the wounded student plagued her nightmares. Should she apologize? Her friends would tell her it wasn't her fault, but she knew Ed would cut through the noise and speak the harsh truth. Ed looked at the girl before him. The bubbly, beloved spirit master was actually crumbling under the weight of expectations. To the world, she was a precious treasure to be protected, so no one ever allowed her to feel negative emotions. Everyone always cheered her up, but deep down, Janica didn't want blind comfort. She wanted someone to acknowledge her reality. No matter how much they praised her, the guilt remained. That was why she came to him. She stretched out, smiling sadly. "You are the only one who doesn't unconditionally take my side." Ed apologized if he seemed rude, but Janica quickly waved it off. To her, his indifference was a breath of fresh air. She realized the rumors were wrong. He wasn't just a fallen noble. He was different from the arrogant boy of last year. Even when he was starving and desperate, he never begged like a commoner. He maintained his dignity. He kept pushing her away, yet ironically, that distance made her feel more at ease than ever before. However, the next day, Ed's expression darkened. The game times, Sylvania's failed swordsman times, was a masterpiece of tragedy. Only a few hardcore players knew the true endings. The early game was a minefield of catastrophic bad endings. Saving a girl in the bushes could trigger the queen's secret route, leading to immediate destruction. Bad ending number 3. Taylor gets assassinated during monster training. Game over. If Taylor ignores his childhood friend Ayla and romances the queen, bad ending. Number 7. Ayla falls to her death. If you protect the queen from fire, Janica's summon goes berserk. Bad ending number 3. Taylor burns alive. A voice snapped him out of his nightmare simulation. It was her again. Ed tried to flee, but he was cornered. Why was she following him? He had ignored her, gritted his teeth, and acted cold, yet she persisted. He thought his cold shoulder strategy would work, but destiny seemed to be laughing at his futile attempts. And then a new challenger appeared. The fourth main heroine, the daughter of the Golden King Lortel Caheln. Known as the Rookie Crusher and the Merchant Princess, she approached him with a business proposition. Lortel was designed as a hidden hero, unlike the villainous facade she wore at the start of the story. Her true colors would only be revealed in the second act, where players would finally understand her crushing loneliness. Players often agonize over choosing a heroine, but I didn't have that luxury. Getting tangled in her web of words meant game over. If I engaged, I would lose the initiative, so I steeled my resolve. I ignored the Merchant Queen's words and kept walking straight ahead. My dismissal left her stunned, but Lortel wasn't known as the Golden Daughter for nothing. Did I really think she would surrender so easily? Even as I walked away, a cold sweat pricked my neck. Then came her voice, sweet and persistent. "Just listen to me, I only want to help." I turned, masking my anxiety with a look of calm skepticism. "You're bluffing." "Goodness, Senior," she feigned shock, clutching her chest. "How dare you doubt my respect, especially after I came all this way?" She stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "You are my inspiration. Even in ruin, you continue your studies." Her flattery was thick, painting a picture of arrogance, but she didn't care who saw. "Please," she pressed, "hear my proposal." Finally, she dropped the act and cut to the chase. 3 gold coins glinted in the moonlight as she held them up. "A deposit," she smiled. "You've been close to Senior Janica lately, haven't you? Help me get close to her." It was a lucrative offer. To a commoner, 3 gold coins was a life-changing fortune. My expression hardened into ice. I leaned in, invading her space, and whispered with disdain. "Does the Merchant Queen believe she can buy people like cattle?" My voice dripped with contempt, but Lortel didn't flinch. She simply slipped the coins into my pocket. "Keep it," she purred. "In my world, the more allies one has, the better." Her audacity forced me to raise my voice. Her vigilance was terrifying. She was already playing 4D chess. She intuitively knew she would soon battle the princess for political dominance of the academy. She was hunting for pawns. Realizing this, I raised my hand in mock defeat. "Fine. Let's shake on it." Lortel extended her hand, a faint victorious smile playing on her lips. She thought she had won. She believed that for those who had known wealth and lost it, a little gold was enough to crush their pride. To her, everyone had a price. She thought desperation made people simple, that they would sell their honor. She expected me to sell my soul for a few coins. Tragically, she was usually right about human nature. But as I stared at the gold, I knew I had to defy expectations. The moment our hands met, I pressed the coins back into her palm. The ex-noble never disappoints, I thought. 3 gold coins aren't enough to buy me. Interesting, Lortel mused, watching me walk away. But internally, I was gritting my teeth in agony. That money could have fixed my life. It was a shame, but the alternative was far worse. The nightmare of getting crushed between the rookie killer and the Wind Spirit Elementalist was a fate I had to avoid. I had to preserve the original storyline at all costs. But Lortel, she didn't feel insulted by my rejection. She saw a challenge. A blunt refusal. A calculation of pros and cons. She saw a fellow merchant. It only fueled her indomitable spirit to transform Janica from a rival into an asset. That very night, the predator made her move. Oh my. Senior Janica Lortel feigned surprise. Janica turned, her hair cascading down in a rare, unguarded look. I didn't expect to find you here, the merchant smiled. Lortel put on her best mask. You know, people are still whispering about me using intermediate magic in our duel. I wanted to apologize. I got carried away testing the strength of the top second-year student. She played the victim perfectly, claiming she paid a heavy price for her curiosity. Janica, ever the saint, showed concern. I hope your wounds have healed. Don't worry about me. Lortel studied her. Janica was pure, like a fairy tale heroine. Asterisk. Does her guilt make her easy to manipulate? Asterisk. Lortel's calculations seemed sound, until the prey bit back. By the way, Janica asked, her tone shifting slightly. Did your conversation with Ed go well? What? Lortel froze. I told the spirits to respect privacy, Janica continued innocently. But spirits are terrible gossips, you know. They hear almost every conversation in the northern woods. Cold sweat trickled down Lortel's spine. She realized every word of her bribery attempt had been broadcasted. She tried to maintain her composure. I'm not sure what you mean. Janica stepped closer, leaning in until her breath tickled Lortel's ear. Her expression turned icy. I'm touched. You'd spend a fortune for me. But money can't buy a person's heart. And his choice to refuse you, that meant everything. With those words, her expression shifted 180 degrees. Returning to her persona as the doting senior, she teased, I am getting a bit complacent, aren't I? Since it is my first time acting as a senior, perhaps I am being a little boastful. How embarrassing. She laughed, scratching her head sheepishly. I really must get going. Forging a contract with a high-ranking spirit required every ounce of my preparation recently. She continued, I received so much support from everyone, so I have no choice but to try even harder. As she spoke those words and turned to leave, something shifted within me. Janica's actions and attitude this evening had completely dismantled my previous impression of her. Janica Faelover. Was she truly just the perfect main character of a fairy tale as I had assumed? Absolutely not. Even though she fully comprehends the darkness lurking in this world, she possesses the strength to maintain her radiance. Just as Janica reached the door, her voice cut through the silence. Hey Ed, about the other day. I am truly sorry. It was because of me that you were injured so seriously, wasn't it? Her voice trembled. I hope you recover quickly. It was difficult for her to say. She looked strangely tense, burdened by a hidden worry. Seeing Janica's face like that, I realized she was pushing herself to the breaking point simply because others placed their hope in her. The following day at the survival camp, I had hung a batch of clothes to dry. But Lucy, witnessing this domestic scene, grimaced in disgust. It stinks, she muttered, channeling magic to obliterate my laundry. Hey, I screamed in panic. I just hung those up. While I was still frantically calculating how to skip the academy tomorrow, a sharp voice rang out. Who is there? Instinctively, I spun around towards the source of the sound. Standing there was the head maid of the opulent Ophelis Hall, the very woman who had kicked my sorry behind out of the dormitory. I assumed she came to mock me. It wouldn't be fun to get rid of me only to have me run back and beg. Do you mean this, Belle? Maya called out. Over here. You do not even bother to look at me properly. I know you are here. Miss, Janica spoke very highly of you. Even so. Her gaze swept over my makeshift camp. I had no idea you were forced to live like this. She seemed pleased that I had turned over a new leaf, yet confused by my savage lifestyle in the forest. However, her lecture went in, one ear and out the other. My eyes were locked onto the head maid of the Ophelis Hall. She is a woman of terrifying competence. She handles cleaning the entire estate perfectly, including gourmet cooking for the students. And in that basket, those must be top-tier ingredients. This maid has scavenged from the forest. That is high-level information. Knowledge I could never acquire merely by reading books. My mind raced, analyzing how Bel Maya's presence might ripple through the narrative. The president must be extremely cautious with every interaction. For any named character, I have to calculate how this person affects the main storyline and whether my communication with them will trigger a butterfly effect or not. Bel Maya spoke up again. You do not need to be so formal. Just talk to me normally like when you resided at Ophelis Hall. That is fine, I replied, but how can a fallen noble speak casually to a mastermaid like, to you? What about this? I pointed to the basket and rubbed my hands together in feigned awkwardness. The truth was, after a quick mental check, I realized that Bel Maya had no events that directly affected the main story. In that case, we should definitely be friends. It won't be a problem for her, right? Having survived in this forest for so long, I knew to seize every opportunity for food. As a result, I successfully requested the ingredients. Instantly, a notification window flashed before my eyes. System. You have heard and asked. Explanation of bearded mushrooms and edible herbs from Bel Maya. Craftsmanship proficiency increased. New product. Fishing net. I had woven the net properly, anchoring it to tree branches to withstand the current. When encountering underground water, fish caught in this net will survive for several days. Difficulty 2 stars. Thanks to the increase in craftsmanship, I am securing plenty of meat and fish for my diet. My survival drink is processing and the continuous use of magic during this survival lifestyle has leveled up my fire and wind magic proficiency significantly. I have 2 basic spells, but I use them so frequently that I have reached level 10 proficiency without even realizing it. New product. Herbal tea. A fragrant recipe acquired from Bel Maya. Difficulty. 1.5 stars. Using magic for chopping firewood and cooking has significantly boosted my survival chances. I even finished my daily tasks before the sun dipped below the mountain peaks. Honestly, it was almost laughable how well things were going. As I sat there savoring the cup of tea I had just brewed, a sudden flash of light in the sky caught my attention. I squinted, trying to identify the anomaly. Suddenly, the light plunged straight towards my camp. It struck, like a meteor unleashing a devastating explosion. The blast wave sent me flying. I waited for the dust to settle my head, spinning with vertigo. But as my vision cleared, I stared in horror at the scene before me. My survival tent had completely everything had vanished, leaving only a pile of rubble in its wake, and the culprit was undoubtedly Lucy. She had crashed into my campsite like a falling meteor, causing my poor tent to simply evaporate into dust. Yet seeing her expressionless face as she claimed she almost died, Ed, who was dusting off the debris, felt a vein pop. What exactly almost killed you inside? Does she not realize she is speaking to the continent's most catastrophic archmage? Ignoring my internal monologue, she acted strangely sensitive, trembling as she encroached upon my personal space. I flinched, ready to dodge a magical outburst, but she simply looked up with pleading eyes. Do you have any jerky left? That was the last straw. I snapped and tossed a stray stick right at her forehead. You blew up my house, and you're asking for snacks. The wood made a solid thwack sound. Watching Lucy rub her forehead, I paused. Wait, why didn't her auto shield activate? Seeing my confusion, she mumbled that her mana was completely depleted. Hearing that, Ed's demeanor shifted instantly. Oh, is that so? A devilish grin formed. Then consider this punishment for destroying my shelter. You're at my mercy now. He unleashed a full-power finger flick against her forehead. Even a villain must teach the bratty archmage a lesson. However, looking at the ruins of his camp, he realized he didn't just need a tent. He needed a fortress, a cabin built of sturdy wood. To achieve this, I immediately headed to the Academy library. Knowledge is power, especially when building from scratch. I gathered every blueprint and architectural guide I could find. From structural integrity to roofing, I needed to master it all. I was so engrossed in my studies that I didn't notice the shadow approaching. Excuse me, senior, the library is closing soon. I looked up, blinking away the fatigue. Standing there was Ayla, looking at me with wide, admiring eyes. I is a first-year magic student, she continued. Seeing a senior study with such intensity, it really motivated me today. Her eyes sparkled with innocence as she waited for my introduction. She clearly had no idea who she was talking to. I decided to rip the bandage off. I is Ed Roth Taylor. Instantly, the color drained from her face as if she'd seen a ghost. Her eyes lost their light. It wasn't surprising. In this academy, my name was synonymous with trash. A bad reputation is like a stain that never washes out. The notoriety of the Taylor family preceded me. But then Isla hesitated. "You're different," she murmured. "You're nothing like the rumors said. I saw the books you were reading. Advanced Elemental Theory. Those are incredibly dense texts. You devoured 6 specialized volumes in one sitting. How can they call you incompetent when you possess such focus?" I is just good at skimming for survival info, I thought, but Isla smiled, her fear replaced by respect. I is lucky to meet a senior who is so sincere and hidden in his talents. I will be rooting for you from now on. Thanks, I muttered, feeling awkward. Get home safe. I watched her leave before packing up my things. But the moment I stood up, a low rumble vibrated through the floorboards. The air suddenly grew heavy. The tremor escalated violently. The entire library groaned as bookshelves began to twist and shatter. Unable to withstand the shock, massive tomes rained down from above directly toward Isla, who was frozen in terror. This chaos signaled the beginning of the end. The final climactic chapter of Act 1 had officially begun. High above the academy, the sky tore open. A colossal magic circle manifested, blotting out the stars. A beam of pure darkness struck the earth. Meanwhile, at the student council headquarters, panic had set in. The protagonist's party had gathered amidst the chaos. 2 agonizing hours had passed since the disaster began. A grim voice broke the silence, reading from an ancient tome. This signature matches the descriptions in the soul scripture. It is the high-ranking dark spirit Glaskin. The name alone sent a shiver through everyone present. Only one student possesses the spirit sensitivity required to summon such a calamity, the professor's grave voice continued. The enemy is the top student of the 2nd year. The elementalist Janica Faelover. Everyone knew the devastating firepower Janica commanded. The room fell into a suffocating silence. In that heavy atmosphere, it was Taylor who stepped forward, his eyes burning with resolve. "I know she is our friend, but we cannot hesitate," Taylor declared. "If we wait, the academy falls. If Glaskin fully manifests, the casualties will be unimaginable. We must breach the student union building now." However, the captain of the Royal Guard intervened. "That is suicide. We must wait for reinforcements. The barrier has alerted the outside world. The professors and elite guards will be here soon to handle this." But Taylor shook his head. "By the time they get here, it will be too late." The academy had been sealed within a barrier of abyss-level darkness, its outer shell impenetrable. Intervening from the outside was impossible, and with Principal Obel absent, we had to survive this nightmare on our own. The silence was broken by Elvira, the ace of the advanced alchemy class, her voice cutting through the fear. She proposed that if the elites here united their powers, even a high-ranking spirit could be crushed. But Clevius, the top student of the combat class, immediately screamed in protest at the sheer insanity of it. He argued that fighting through an army of intermediate spirits just to reach the main building was a death sentence. And it wasn't just minions. The tower was guarding monsters that defied logic. High-level fire spirits were rampaging, and the dark spirit Glascan had turned Janica into a puppet of mass destruction. While Clevius hyperventilated in terror, Lortel analyzed the situation with a cold, calculating gaze. She questioned if a single student, even a top-tier genius, could truly sustain such a catastrophic amount of mana. Summoning and anchoring a dark deity like that shouldn't be possible for a mere human. The terrifying truth dawned on them. It was the dark spirit itself fueling the chaos, using Janica merely as a vessel. These weren't just spirits. They were the natural predators of humanity, ancient demons that no mortal could tame. These entities existed solely to warp reality and shatter the peace of the continent. Spiritualists usually guarded their souls against such corruption, terrified of being consumed by the abyss. Yet Janica, the most brilliant elementalist of her generation, had her soul devoured by the demon Vepar. But analyzing the past was useless now. The only thing that mattered was the command to march. The burden of life and death fell upon one person's shoulders, Princess Phenia. Every eye in the room turned toward her, waiting for the royal decree that would decide their fate. In that suffocating silence, the memory of that indifferent man's voice suddenly echoed in her mind. He had spoken of burdens, but surely whatever weight he carried could not compare to the crown's heavy duty she felt now. She realized she would have to make ruthless choices, ones that would haunt her forever. If only she could live as freely as he did. But steeling her heart, she announced her decision. "We strike in 1 hour. I will take the lead, accompanied by my royal guards and the top-ranked students. Only those with proven combat prowess will enter the lion's den. The weak will stay behind. I am taking full command of this battlefield." Her declaration rang out with absolute authority. The cowardly nobles and magicians sitting on the sidelines could offer no help, paralyzed by their own fear. It was pathetic, but she couldn't waste energy on those who lacked the resolve to fight for their lives. We were the only ones capable of standing against the darkness. Suddenly, a trembling voice spoke up. "Wait, there is someone else still out there. I saw them near the library before the barrier went up." 2 students were trapped, an intern librarian and a second-year student named Isla. Hearing Isla's name, Zix froze his face, losing all color as panic seized his heart. Isla is trapped. Zix practically roared, realizing his partner was in the heart of danger. He tried to rush out, but Lortel and Fenia blocked his path, forcing him to keep his composure. The library was too far, and their priority had to be subduing the source of the chaos, Janica. Fenia agreed, but a question lingered. Who was the other student trapped with Isla? Why hadn't they returned? A terrifying suspicion began to take root in the group. Zix flashed forward in a blur of speed, grabbing the witness by the collar, his eyes burning with intensity. Speak, who is with her. Don't you dare hide anything from me right now. Terrified by his killing intent, the girl stammered out a name that froze the entire room, Ed Roth Taylor. The atmosphere instantly shifted from fear to horror. The girl wept, explaining she had left Ayla alone with him. Everyone knew his reputation. He was the fallen noble, the disgrace of the academy who cared for nothing but himself. Whispers erupted immediately. Ed Roth Taylor. That scum is alone with a defenseless girl in a sealed library. For Zix, those words were like gasoline poured onto a raging fire. His fury skyrocketed. He looked ready to murder someone, but Fenia desperately held him back before he could lose control. Should we put our faith in that man just for once? The question hung in the air, turning the crowd to stone. Even Fia stood paralyzed, unable to fathom why those words had left her own lips. Meanwhile, seeing this unfold, the young wolf didn't hesitate. He bolted toward the library, his inner thoughts consumed by fury. All these spirit beasts in my way. If that man dares to touch a single strand of Isla's hair, I will slaughter him without mercy. Born into a chaotic existence, Zix's past was defined by primal survival. He had lived like a savage aborigine, hunting daily just to see the next sunrise. Today was no different. Judging by the prey's size, it was a full-grown male. He scanned the broken branches and trampled grass. Someone had just passed through here. A quick glance at the tracks told him everything. Moments later, a massive deer stood before him. The northern steppes of the empire, a barbaric wasteland where even the royal family's authority turns to dust. A cruel world where surviving the day without being betrayed is considered a miracle. Zix was a descendant of the nomads, but having been lost during his youth, the memories of his true origins were hazy at best. When did he lose his way in the human world? He didn't know. Could he ever return to the life he once knew? He learned to slit a deer's throat before he learned to read. Before he knew how to buy bread at a store, he mastered the art of theft, scavenging goods from roadside corpses. Unbelievable, isn't it? That was the life of a beast in human skin. But everything changed the moment he met Isla. She was the first to ask for his name. Talking to Zix, who dressed like a wolf walking on two legs, that was the moment reality struck him. His life of wandering the endless northern steppes, the boy who slept under the moon was just a lonely, abandoned wolf cub waiting for warmth. The very next day, Ayla brought him home. She and her parents welcomed him with open arms. As he embraced the hustle of human civilization, his barbaric past faded into a distant memory. The wolf cub had become a human. However, if it means protecting her, he is ready to become a monster once again. To the world, he played the villain, cheating on exams, insulting the princess, and mocking the lower class. Back in the present, he burst into the library. Spotting Ed, he roared, Ed Roth Taylor, "Where is Isla? What did you do?" "Tell me now," Ed simply pointed to reading room number 3. "She's in there. Go quickly." Zix rushed in. Isla was sleeping soundly, completely unharmed. Seeing this, the tension left his body. He let out a shaky breath. Thank the gods, she's safe. Calming his racing heart, he finally looked around. Massive bookcases, heavy enough to crush a grown man, were arranged in a defensive circle, standing guard around her like sentinels. Curtains were draped to block the sight of the rising spirits. Then he saw the message on the board. "When you wake up, do not panic. Stay here. It will end before dawn. Block the entrance. Do not provoke the spirits." It was the work of someone who prioritized survival above all else. From these details alone, Zix realized the truth. Someone had desperately tried to protect Isla. His eyes fell upon the jacket covering Isla. There was blood on it. But this wasn't Isla's blood. He traced the bloodstains trailing out the door. It all made sense now. Even though he was injured, that man didn't tend to his own wounds. The protector's blood belonged to Ed Roth Taylor. But what actually happened? 3 hours earlier, Ed had managed to shield Ayla just as the bookshelf collapsed. It happened faster than he anticipated. Glancing at the summoning circle, he knew the war for Glaskin had begun. There are others who can handle the main threat, he thought. I don't need to intervene in the spotlight. The future is set, and time is money. I can't sit idle. If he did nothing, low-level spirits would flood the area. I have to block the entrance so the spirits can't get in. I need to turn this room into a fortress. Chewing on beef jerky for stamina, he spent the night analyzing documents and moving heavy furniture. As he shifted the bookshelves to form a defensive wall, a thought suddenly crossed his mind. He recalled what made Jenica's skills so legendary. It was her innate proficiency in understanding spirits. Her spirit resonance and induction stats skyrocketed through direct contact. It was a unique growth method. For most, communicating with spirits is a rare gift. For someone who cannot even see them, it is impossible. Raising stats like her is a miracle. But looking at the spirits manifesting around him now, Janica's grand event had finally begun, and I decided to immerse myself in the chaos. Flashbacks of my duel with the elves flooded my mind. I had fought like a man possessed. My affinity with the fire element had surged to level 12, and my understanding of spirits was evolving. Rumor has it that reaching level 15 unlocks the ability to form a spirit contract. With a little push, I could reach it, but my physical vessel was screaming at its limit. Pushing any harder would be flirting with death, but Kiesel found me sitting there amidst the ruins. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice filled with confusion at my stillness. I was simply catching my breath, nursing my wounds, but there was no need for complex explanations. "Just resting," I told him, but he interpreted my exhaustion as intense mental cultivation. "You truly are incredible," he murmured, completely misreading the situation. "I owe you a debt of blood, Sunbei," he said, bowing his head in deep respect. "When the time comes, I will repay this kindness." Watching him, I recalled his role in the story. Kiesel. Wasn't he a key figure in Rachel's romance route in the original guidebook? If so, he is a crucial piece on this chessboard. I spoke up, assessing the battlefield. "Since you have left the student council to come here, listen closely. Once you are sure you are safe, return to the council immediately and find Taylor. Do exactly as I say, and this disaster will be averted." "You mean Taylor McRafe?" "Yes, the guy who always snatches victory from the jaws of defeat by a hair's breadth." "I have never spoken to him," Kiesel admitted, but I began to explain the mechanics of the boss. "The High Spirit's armor is impervious to everything except the elemental slash technique. Taylor learns this skill in Act 1, Chapter 9. It is our only hope for victory. If you can guide him to awaken that power, we win." "Thank you for the guidance. Hurry now, time is against us." I watched them sprint away, my mind racing. I have given them the cheat codes, but a heavy question lingered in my heart. Why hasn't the timeline aligned? In the original story, Taylor and Zest become rivals. They duel, and through that clash, Taylor masters the art of severing magic. But we are a month ahead of schedule. The end-of-term evaluations haven't happened yet. They aren't friends, and Taylor hasn't learned the elemental slash. No one in this current timeline possesses the power to kill the boss monster. The plot armor has shattered. Meanwhile, at the student plaza, the atmosphere was grim. Forgive me, I was too weak. The raid team was in tatters, morale crushed. Princess Penia looked at her defeated soldiers. "Even with our numbers, we were overwhelmed." Clay spoke up through the pain. "We need more volunteers. I will fight again." "Stay down, Clay. You can barely stand, let alone fight." Penia's voice broke. "Please, Princess, do not bench me." Her hands trembled as she looked at him. "I am a commander, but I still have a human heart, Clay." She bit her lip. The retreat saved their lives, but their fighting spirit was extinguished. "How can we possibly destroy that monster?" Just as hope faded, a voice cut through the silence. "We do not have the luxury of self-pity. Look at the summoning ritual. It is entering the final phase. Listen up, we are splitting into 2 squads. I will lead the vanguard. And Taylor, you are coming with me whether you like it or not." The crowd gasped, staring at me in disbelief. "Taylor, the failure of the academy. Is this a joke?" someone shouted, but the vice captain silenced them. "Let him speak. We must pierce the fire spirit Tarkan's defenses and save Janica from the darkness. But as you all know, physical attacks are useless against his spirit armor. To clash directly with the high spirit, Tarkan is pure madness. If that beast focuses its rage on us, it is over. While one squad draws the monster's fire, the other must infiltrate and neutralize Janica the summoner." Lortel immediately objected, her voice sharp. "That is impossible. Tarkan's power level is far beyond our simulations. We only survived before because it was holding back. If the decoy team fails to hold that monster's attention, or if they are wiped out instantly, then the suppression team will be crushed between 2 impossible threats. The risk is catastrophic." She understood the stakes clearly. "We can only weigh risks when we actually have a choice. Listen, Lortel. The objective is absolute. If we subdue Janica, the spirit Tarkan vanishes. The only question remains. Who will volunteer for the suicide squad to distract that living inferno?" Silence fell over the group. To volunteer was to sign one's own death warrant. Suddenly, I raised my hand. "I will be the bait." But before I could finish, the objection came swiftly. "No, you cannot do that. Get back in formation. You belong in the main strike force." I tried to reason with them. "I have the fastest mobility here. I do not know how long I can outrun death. But if a sacrifice is required, then I am the only logical choice, right?" However, the plan changed. "We will split the burden. Clevius, Lortel, and I. The 3 of us will lure the beast away." The moment his name was called, Clevius erupted. "Why the hell should it be me? I don't want to die." I ignored his wailing and turned to the others. "Trust me. There is a path to victory here. I can't handle Tarkan alone, but with Clevius and Lortel, we stand a chance. Before Clevius could scream again, Princess Phoebia stepped forward. I may not fully grasp the situation, but I issue this command. As Phoebia El-Klel, third princess of the Empire, the combat unit will divide. Taylor, Elvira, and Adela will form the suppression squad to save Janica. Ed, Clevius, and Lortel will serve as the decoy, her eyes burned with royal authority. I will keep this brief. Do not die. That is an order. With the decree given, the teams split to meet their destiny. In the hallway, looking toward the looming threat, Lortel whispered anxiety, hidden in her eyes. How do we buy time against a god? Just stick to the plan, I replied, staring down the corridor. If we execute this perfectly, we win, no matter what happens. With resolve hardening our hearts, the three of us charged toward the fire lizard. Clevius, don't worry, I shouted. We can do this. Clevius is a coward crippled by self-doubt. We need to artificially inflate his ego. Clevius looked at my confident expression, bewildered. Why is he so calm? Does he actually have a secret weapon? Behind the great doors lay the possessed Janica. All I have to do is keep this monster busy. The princess's command echoed in Clevius's mind, forcing his legs to move. I'm not alone. Ed is here too. He tried to gather the scraps of his courage. Suddenly, the fire lizard Tarkan inhaled, gathering a breath of hellfire in its maw. Clevius spun around in panic. It's attacking Ed. How do we lure it? But as he turned to ask for orders, he realized he was utterly alone. The other two had vanished. The look on Clevius's face was a masterpiece of despair. Survival instinct kicked in instantly. Clevius bolted, accelerating with impossible speed. You liars, you traitors. Why does the world hate me? Where are you crazy bastards? Come out. Screaming curses, he ran for his life. But it was all according to design. Safely hidden in the side passage, I signaled to Lortel. Now, let's move. We had pushed Clevius into the line of fire. You essentially sacrificed him, Lortel noted coldly. Is that not cruel? It saves the majority. He won't die easily. I watched the chaos unfold. Don't underestimate him. Despite his attitude, his stats are monstrous. His agility and endurance are top tier. He is the perfect tank. But the most critical role belongs to you, Lortel. You are the key to the suppression team's success. While Clevius runs for his life, you must create the secure corridor for the main team. I can't ask just anyone for this level of precision. Hearing my trust in her abilities, dozens of complex magic circles bloomed behind her. She had hesitated before fearing to reveal her true strength. But if you say so. With a flick of her hand, raw mana surged, blasting the obstruction away. She shattered the wall, opening the path for the suppression squad. At the same time, a realization hit her. He knows. He saw me use forbidden intermediate magic during the joint combat practice. He knows exactly what I am capable of. Leave this role to me. Taylor stepped forward, radiating the confidence of an SR-rank hero. The entrance was secured, but the real chaos was just beginning. As she turned, Gloos dragged the massive beast from the shadows. Did you think I was finished? The threat was far from over. I will haunt you from the depths of hell. But now, the students faced a calamity far greater than mere words. Even if the strike team breached the perimeter, a catastrophic variable remained. Taylor and Genius froze. A high-rank fire lizard fighting such a disaster in a narrow corridor was a guaranteed death sentence. There was no escape route here. Their only hope lay in dragging the infernal beast into the open air. Physical attacks were useless against its adamant scales. I needed to buy time. I needed a miracle. Without elemental superiority, we were just insects to this monster. We needed apocalyptic firepower. And my ace in the hole, the sleeping catastrophe, Lucy. She was dozing off, completely oblivious to the war zone. While the world ended, she was dreaming. It was infuriating. How can you sleep through this spiritual pressure? Displaced from her shelter and drained of mana, Lucy was running on fumes. She had fled to the rooftop to escape Janica's darkening aura, only to pass out from sheer exhaustion. Janica's emotional storm had terrified even the genius mage. Lucy had used her last spark of magic just to hide. Using this unstable variable was a gamble, but fate left me no choice. It was time to wake the sleeping dragon. I pulled out the ultimate summoning catalyst, high-grade beef jerky, the moment the savory scent hit the air. Her eyes snapped open. Is that meat? The starving wolf awoke instantly, devouring the bait in seconds. Eat up, restore your mana. I grabbed the bewildered mage by her collar. Now earn your keep. I aimed her towards the enemy. I choose you. There was no time to explain. Having executed this strategy countless times in the game, my form was flawless. I hurled Lucy directly at the charging beast. The fire lizard's maw glowed with infernal energy, preparing a breath attack. Lucy's scream pierced the sky. Oh God, save me, instinct took over. As she faced the inferno, raw magic exploded from her small frame. Asterisk. Lightning disaster times. A blinding pillar of high-level thunder crashed down just as I predicted. I frantically erected a wind barrier. Brace for impact. The shockwave sent us flying, devastating the area. The railing melted instantly under the heat and voltage. We barely survived the friendly fire. A high-rank fire spirit is usually invincible, its hide impervious to steel. But the game had changed. Lucy's tactical nuke had shattered its defenses. The absolute defense was broken. Now it was vulnerable. And that massive chunk of experience points, that belongs to me. I didn't care about glory. I needed to secure the last hit to level up. The final blow must be mine. Meanwhile, deep within the academy, Janica's mind was a fracturing labyrinth. Voices of expectation echoed in the darkness. My proud daughter, the genius of the second year. You are the only one we can trust, Janica. Don't fail us. The weight of perfection was crushing her soul. If it's Janica, we have nothing to fear. Every word of praise was another chain binding her heart. The pressure of being the golden child was suffocating her, drowning her in a sea of expectations. Asterisk. Boom times. The wall crumbled into dust as Taylor's squad breached the sanctum. Janica witnessed the intrusion. Like a puppet on strings, she forced a hollow smile. Welcome, she whispered, her eyes devoid of light. Looming in the shadows, the goat-headed demon Velmorte watched with glee. Yes, break her further. Let them fight. By dawn, her spirit will be completely mine. The clock was ticking toward tragedy. Back on the roof, I checked on my living artillery. Lucy status, she rolled away completely drained. I can't move. She was out of mana. Fine, she's done her part. Now it's my turn to dance. I gathered every ounce of my mana. Even wounded, the beast refused to die. I struck with dual water spears, but its resistance was insane. Why won't you fall? Senior, your ice magic is dull, someone mocked. Is that the best a noble can do? Shouldn't the swordsman handle this? I glanced at our so-called warrior. He was cowering in the corner, trembling like a leaf. Useless, I can't rely on these NPCs. I gritted my teeth, gripping my weapon. Fine, I'll take the burden of ending this nightmare myself. Hold him down, use me as the bait, I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. I'll put my life on the line, so give it everything you've got. Her eyes went wide with shock. Senior, you talk about risking death as if it were nothing. It's not a gamble if you know the odds, I muttered, forcing my legs to move forward. It's time to cash in. This isn't a bet, I called back to her. Because the value of a life isn't cheap. This is an investment. Lote's lips curved into a knowing smile. An investment. Perhaps you really are a queen holding all the cards. Despite your royal blood, you let the flow of destiny carry you, she whispered. But because my senior is risking it all, then I will stake my life as well. Mana surged around her, terrifying and majestic. Because as you said, this is an investment. She unleashed a torrent of magic. I didn't hesitate, I charged straight toward the fire spirit struggling in her grasp. The beast is at its limit, I realized, my lungs burning. But so am I. The monster roared, lunging at me in desperation. Wind magic swirled in my palm. Stay back. But suddenly, a blood-curdling scream tore through the battlefield. It was Gemius. The sky darkened. A colossal hand materialized from the void, the manifestation of Glask. Taylor and his party must have pushed the boss to its final phase, I analyzed. But the timing is catastrophic. Everyone is looking at the sky instead of the enemy in front of them. The fire spirit opened its maw to incinerate me. Suddenly, an icicle struck its jaw, deflecting the blast. A miracle, I grinned. Even in the panic, she didn't miss. That's my opening. I closed the distance in a heartbeat. The monster's neck was right in front of me. In my hand, a sphere of compressed wind screamed. A spell I have honed thousands of times. Windblade. A giant scythe of air exploded from my palm, slicing cleanly through the lizard's neck. The beast's head fell, dissolving into particles of light. A holographic window flashed before my eyes. You have defeated the high-tier fire spirit. Spirit resonance increased. Elemental understanding leveled up. Notifications cascaded down my vision. Contract with a spirit is now available. Meanwhile, high above Taylor soared into the heavens like a streak of lightning to confront the giant hand. A blinding pillar of light erupted. The giant hand was shattered into countless fragments, exploding into dust. The shockwave knocked everyone to the ground. I watched in awe. What absurd power. Truly. The strength of a main character. As the hand crumbled, the dark curtain in the sky finally lifted. Later, under the shade of a large tree, the survivors sat in exhausted silence. I've heard many claim they'd die for a cause, I thought, glancing around. But most are just cowards when the time comes. Senior Lot turned to me, her voice soft. We just survived hell, yet you look as calm as still water. Allow me to introduce myself properly, she said, standing up. I am Lotte Kejian. She shook my hand, and when she pulled away, I felt the cold weight of 3 gold coins in my palm. I won the bet this time, she smirked. You let your guard down. Now I owe you a favor. What shall I do to repay this debt? She asked, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Is she trying to maintain a connection with me? I wanted to avoid entanglements, but my thoughts were interrupted. A familiar, annoying voice rang out. Hey everyone, I sighed. We all knew who this was. I owe you my life today. Thank you. It was Taylor. The protagonist bowed his head deeply to me. He looked different, sharper. It was the sign that he had finally mastered the elemental sword. Taylor Gamius stomped over his face, twisted in jealousy. Why are you bowing to trash like him? He's a snake. One day he'll stab you in the back. Gemius was still bitter about being outsmarted. Silence, Gemius, the team behind him snapped. You're embarrassing yourself. He fought alone while you cried in a corner. The others defended me, leaving Gemius to sulk in humiliation. Esther Taylor said earnestly. You contributed greatly. I will write a recommendation to the student council for you. I immediately shook my head. No need. Lucy dealt the final blow to Tan, and you defeated the boss. I deflected. The glory belongs to the two of you. Elvira nodded from the side. He's right. Let's not complicate things. Everyone knows who the real heroes are. Effort alone. No, we were discussing something far more delicate. Are you flustered? He teased. After all, he holds the wealth. He spoke with perfect etiquette when he entered the scene, but her eyes blazed with anger. Why are you taking his side? She snapped. He replied solemnly. Because watching them converse, like this, stirs a genuine warmth in my heart. It doesn't wail. It doesn't derail the original plot, so I allowed myself to enjoy the moment. Though I swore to keep my distance from the main protagonists, witnessing them with my own eyes brought a sense of peace. It was satisfying to see them fulfill their destined roles in this world and conquer their trials. With every problem solved, Taylor's power surges like a storm throughout the well. Exams, and Ayla blossoms in strength beside him. The hero gradually matures, finally accepting the heavy destiny of a supreme ruler governing the kingdom. Zix has carved his own path through ancient wisdom, while Clevius has forged newfound confidence in his blade. Elvira realizes that fleeting pleasure isn't everything, and even Lortel begins to wonder if life is truly manipulated by gold coins alone. Each hero plays their part, marching toward a final destination named victory. Knowing the truth, he returned to a sanctuary where failure is impossible. I discovered this spot as the scenario unfolded, though I was frustrated to realize this was the very same hideout Lucy used for her naps during the joint combat training. No matter how many times I analyzed it, dissatisfaction lingered. Yet I knew the truth. For the main characters to truly shine in the light, there must be someone lurking behind the scenes in the darkness. Resigned to my fate, I threw open the chest, but it was Janica hiding inside. She found herself completely trapped. Realizing she had been caught red-handed, she could only look up and offer a shy, bashful smile.